Hello, Miss April here at Kearney Public Library. We are going to be doing an online Watercolor Wednesday course. So I'm going to show you a brief outline of what we're doing. I'll show you our supplies, just some basic steps, and these are going to be things that you can do whether you're a novice or if you've painted for a lot of years. They're kid-friendly and adult-friendly. It's just something fun you can do from home. For our project, we are going to be doing a New Year's Eve themed project. I thought with bringing in the new year, we could have some fun. We're using those kind of iridescent metallic paints again. The supplies you're going to need, you'll have your paint palette. You can use solid colored palette if you don't have the metallics. I mean, really, you can choose anything that you like. Your watercolor paper. I like to choose paper that's around 100 pounds or higher, just so that it doesn't warp. You're going to need a ruler, and I just grabbed a pencil, a black colored pencil, a couple of different brushes. You can use a short bristled brush like this if you feel like it gives you more control. I really like round brushes because I feel like I can use it the way I would a pen or a pencil when I paint. Get some paper towels, some painter's tape, and just a small glass of water. And if you're kind of new to painting, when you put the painter's tape on, I just try and get it close to the edge on all four sides. Technically, you don't have to tape your artwork down, but if you're going to be putting a wash of paint and water across the whole paper, I would definitely recommend it so that your paper doesn't warp. So I'll just go around all four sides. Another important thing to remember when you are done painting and you've let everything dry, make sure that when you're taking your tape off, you pull away from your artwork just so that you don't tear into what you've painted. I've ruined a few paintings that way, pulling my tape off right on the inside. And I'm going to make my lines darker just so it's more visible on screen. But you're going to want to do faint lines so that you can see it, but you can erase it afterwards. So I'll start by making an X. And you can change things up too. If you decide you don't want to write the year, or maybe you want to put a message on there, like if you're sending a painting or a card to someone you know, feel free to change that up. And I just kind of looked at it and took maybe just a little bit higher than the top third. And another thing, you can use stencils. I like to freehand a lot of my lettering and numbers, but you know, if you don't like to do that, you don't have to. You can find lots of different stencil sets. Just space it evenly. I wanted to have like that whole fancy New Year's ball gown tuxedo type look to my picture, so I drew a bow tie in there. And then if you want to use your ruler, make sure everything is precise. I made this look really linear with the ruler. You could do all of this freehand if you wanted to. Maybe you want stuff to look a little bit more flowy. I'm just going to give you the basic idea of how I drew that out. Let's start with my round brush. And you can pick any colors you want. I chose kind of like a teal green and silvers and blacks. When I think of tuxedos, I always think of like a classic black or a dark charcoal gray. And when you paint with the round brush where it comes to a tip like that, you can actually just use it the way you would a pen or a pencil, where it's kind of like you're drawing a line. And if your brush strokes are a little bit crooked, I wouldn't worry about that, because we can go over it, kind of give it an outlined edge. Another trick too, when you want lines, if you press your brush down and just slide it across, you can get a pretty straight line that way as well. So I'm just applying more pressure to that brush. And I went outside the lines there, so I'll go over that afterwards. And you can choose how many lines you want to put. Maybe you just want to do the jacket. Another good thing to do when you're using these metallic paints, if you use just a little bit of water, and make sure that your paint has kind of a gummy texture to it, it lays on a little bit thicker. And you can also let this dry and put on, 2 coats or even 3 if you're using more water. But I kind of went thick so that it wouldn't distort my paper at all. Fun thing about this is you can play around with how you make your lines. And then I chose a darker metallic gray. On my final product, I did have more lines, so I used a lighter gray here, the darker. So you can see there's a little bit more variety, but I just want to give you guys an idea of how to paint it, and then, you can decide how detailed you want your work to be. And when you get into these smaller spaces, if you want to use a finer tip brush, you can. Sometimes it gives you a little more control. I feel like the round brushes cover more area. So if you're doing a bigger picture, maybe stick with your round brush. And you can add water if you want your colors to bleed a little bit. I used a champagne color for the shirt and the inside folds of the skirt on the dress. You can go light or dark, and if you add a little bit of water to this lighter color, you can make the paint stretch out a little bit further, or you can keep adding to your palette, from your palette, excuse me. It's a pretty light color. I don't know if you'll be able to see much of it on screen, but I just wanted to get some of that solid white space filled in. And when you're doing this, you're going to want to let each layer dry. That way you don't have any issues with your colors bleeding together, or, you know, some of the paint running together if it was a little bit wetter when you were working on it. The lettering, you can choose if you want to use a light or a dark color, and maybe you only want to use one color, especially if painting and lettering or numbers sounds difficult. I kind of just played around with the width of my paint. You can use the tip of the brush for a thinner line. You can push down on the side to get a bolder line. So here I'm using more of the tip of the brush. I'm kind of using the side of it. And then I flatten it out to widen it. And again, you don't have to feel like this has to be perfect. So I'm just going to leave some little smudges around the edges here. I have a habit of sticking my hand, the side of my hand, in my paint because I'm left-handed. So I have to touch stuff up on occasion. Okay, so I've got the basic structure for my letters painted in. Excuse me, I keep saying letters, they're numbers. 2021. And then you can either use a black colored pencil, or if you have watercolor pencils, you can use those as well. Black colored pencils might be a little bit firmer. But I'm just going to go ahead and use it to make my lines look crisp. And again, you're going to want to let this dry first so that you get better results. So you can see when I fill this in, you don't see all of those smudged edges that I had with my paint. So that just sharpens it up and makes it look a little bit bolder. There's so many different fonts for numbers and letters. You can really have fun with this if you like calligraphy. But that gives you an idea of how to outline your work. And I did the same thing within my picture. I wanted to have crisp, clean looking lines. But you know, if you like the way the watercolor looks and how it kind of smudges and bleeds, you can definitely leave it that way as well. And you can use your ruler too. That'll give you a lot cleaner line than what I'm doing here. And if you like glitter, maybe you could add some glitter to the background. And really all I'm going to finish off with is filling everything in. So I've got my different layers here. Got my darker metallic gray. So here you can see where I just painted everything in, and you can leave it like that, or you can go back in to crispen up your lines. When you take your tape off, I was kind of thinking about sending cards to family and friends for the new year. And I have just a metallic Sharpie. So in that spot where I had my painter's tape, I can just fill that in with metallic ink, and it has a nice border to it. So you could actually use, they make watercolor cards, you could use those. Or if you just have some watercolor paper at home and you score it in the middle and fold it over. And it looks like I stuck my hand in my paint again. So I'm going to just take some water. Just clean that up a little bit. And that is what the finished product is going to look like.